how do you come up with your video ideas for that week?
And I said that it was for mine.
Okay. Well, the way I pick my games is most of the Psykoneko games were just the games that I grew up with, and it was more that I wanted everyone to know what these games were because I grew up with them, I loved them, and I wanted to share them with everyone else. And so after I basically reviewed all the games that I grew up with, and then I started wondering, okay, well, now what do I do? Do I just pick random video games, import video games? And then I realized that when I went to Japan, I would always get video games that were based on anime that I've been watching, because you couldn't get them as easy in the States. So I remember when I was little, we got the first Dragon Ball Z Super Butoden game for the SNES, or the Super Famicom, and we played the crap out of that game. That game was, I mean, by today's standards, if you look at it now, it's the most horrible game ever. But back then, it was like the only fighting game that was good that was out was Street Fighter 2, and I guess Mortal Kombat, but I don't really like Mortal Kombat. But here was a fighting game that had all your favorite Dragon Ball Z characters, and this game just kept giving because you could do the different storylines and unlock different characters. And anyways, as Jesse says, long story long, too late. Long story short, too late.
Yeah. Good job.
I decided to focus on games that people would recognize in the States, but they were still import games. So the majority of those games are anime games. So for my new show that I'm doing, I'm focusing more on games, on anime-based games. So like Cowboy Bebop, I do Gundam, G Generation F, I do the Azumanga Daioh Donja game, and so that's kind of how I pick my games. Is that because I noticed that the games that I grew up with that I loved, but that had no connection to anything in America, no one would watch because they have no connection to it. Versus if I did Transformers, the import game that never came out in America, people would be like, "Oh, Transformers! I know what that is. Let me watch this show."
For me, I just have a long list of themes in anime, and I add to it every now and then when I'm watching anime. Sometimes just, you realize things as you're going through. I usually don't really have any kind of rhyme or reason why I pick one thing over another. It's more of what makes sense right now. Like, I did a Golden Week episode in last May, and my next episode coming up is actually a school uniform episode, but it's not. I'm really only doing it because I just happen to have a school uniform laying around, and I just really wanted, it's not something that I'm thinking, oh, well, this is what I'm going to do next. I need to do something about this. It's more, all right, I have this long list. Let's just kind of pick and choose which ones I want to do next.
I don't mean to do a spoiler, but is that just going to kind of tie in a little bit to the previous school uniform episode?
It sort of does. There's no cameos or anything, though.
Oh.
Yeah. No, there's no Yankee J in this school uniform episode.
I've had my own modified Yankee uniform for years now, probably since 2008, I believe, is when I first started wearing it. And I didn't know what half the things meant. I didn't even know what it meant to give my significant other the button from the jacket. But I gave her the button from the jacket anyways, and I watched the episode, I'm like, oh, that's what it meant. Well, it's just hilarious for me because it's the last button on the jacket, which is not quite as close to my heart as it is something else. And that's mainly what the Anime Basics show is all about. Is it started off as more of a kind of a guide for people trying to get into anime, but then it kind of turned into just interesting things that happen in anime that aren't really necessarily explained, but anime fans, they just get it. And sometimes we just get it just because we're like, that's kind of weird, but whatever, it's some Japanese thing. it's cool, all right, and then it shows up in another anime, and they're like, oh, there's that thing that I kind of glossed over, but I know what that is.
So this actually explains those things.
Exactly.
So it's for newbies and old timers alike.
Which is a lot of fun, and it reminds me of the book that came out a while back, and one of the guests at the same con. Charles Porteous wrote The Anime Companion, which helped me out back in the early 2000s, and I was like, what does this mean? What does this mean? So I'm glad there's another resource out there for people who have to go through that fun phase of, what does this mean? That's what I thought was always kind of odd, is how do you guys decide when a cameo is needed or warranted? How do you come up with that decision?
Oh, I think it's just timing.
Yeah,
That's all it is.
Sometimes it's even if you just want to. For example, last night we met with Count Jacula and got to talking with him, and I wanted to do a cameo with him, or a crossover actually with him, and just have a back and forth. But I review Japanese video games and Japanese movies, and he does horror movies, and I don't watch horror movies. But we got to talking about weird movies that we liked, and we had a similar taste in Big Man Japan. I started writing a script for just me, but I just said, you know what? We're going to do this movie. That's going to be you and me. We're going to do Big Man Japan together. So sometimes it's just, I want this person here for this, for no other reason than to have them sometimes.
But sometimes it's for real reasons, like, I mean, I hate to say, I joke about it all the time that our crossover was my way into Tigwittig, but in a sense, it really does help for reviewers to cross over with other reviewers on prominent websites, because I mean, the thing is that I could have asked you to do a crossover, and you could have been like, okay, and then I could have made the most horrible, like, video quality thing I could have imagined, and you would have been like, this is great. I like this. Good job. And I'd be like, will you put it on Tigwittig? And be like, well, I don't, maybe not. It's not ready yet. Maybe in a few months or so. But the thing is that if I didn't have the chops, you wouldn't have put it on Tigwittig, and people wouldn't have known me there. But the thing is that, I mean, even in our panel, when I suggested, when someone asked how you get on, like, how do you get to where more fans or more people, crossovers is the way to do it. I think at this point in time, it's kind of flooded the market. Like, there's way too many crossovers happening right now, and just the feeling, the special feeling of a crossover is kind of lost when there's too many. But I don't know, crossovers are fun. It's like you get to collaborate with another person. You get to do things that you would never do on your own. You may be able to tackle a huge subject matter that you feel like it's too much for just one person. Like when I did the Super Sentai, I was like, I could do it all by myself, but no one wants to listen to Japanese guy yelling about Super Sentai. We need to throw in some. Well, maybe there's some people who wanted you to see a Japanese guy yelling about Super Sentai. But the thing is isn't it even better that there's like someone to like, there's the Jew Wario there to kind of like, to balance things off. You got the crazy high-pitched Japanese guy, and then you got the calm, like, white guy. and if you both like talk about different aspects of what you love about Super Sentai. And so yeah, that's did that answer the question?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I was really lucky on mine. I get to hang out with Justin quite a bit because of Mark, and like when I was choosing my episodes, it's like, oh well, I know Justin's going to be around. I definitely have to do a Gakudon episode with Yankee J. Like, there's no way I'm letting him leave without letting me do some episodes with Yankee J. And then, when he called me up for the Sailor Moon episode, I was more than happy to join him with that. I love Sailor Moon, and he knows that, so it was perfect. You just know certain topics are going to be important to other people, and you just want to bring them in on it. And the same thing with my newest episode, and I'm not going to spoil it here because it's not coming out for a while. But I had been wanting to get a crossover with these other two for a long time, and I had the perfect idea. It was just a matter of when we were all going to be together, and we were finally all together at MagFest in January, and so we got to hang out and do this awesome thing.
Exciting.
Question. I'm sorry, I've been holding that back for a while.
And a lot of the times, the crossovers, you get to really know the person who you're doing the crossover with. I mean, before the crossover, you would be like, oh, like Jew Wario, he seems like a really nice guy. He seems to know what he's talking about, but I don't really know for sure. And then you actually meet the person, and you're like, oh, awesome. And sometimes it's
He seems like a nice guy.
sometimes it's you.
There's a better reason I chose the Wario.
No other reason at all. But sometimes it occurs like you don't know the person, but you know their work. You want to do crossover. Or other times you meet them at a convention and you're like, oh, I really like this person. I'd like to do a crossover with them. Sort of thing.
And last question, how are you guys enjoying Fanime?
Oh, I love Fanime.
Yeah, Fanime is awesome.
It's our friend told us to come down, and I actually went to the very first Fanime when it was over in Foothill College. And,
wow.
Yeah, and it was the one screen, and I thought it sucked. I honestly because it was his first year, and it was like it was just one theater, and it was like 5 vendors. I was like, I'm never coming back to this again. And then every year I kept hearing stuff about it. I was like, that's that con at Foothill College. I know better. But then it's eventually our friend was like, no, it's at San Jose Convention Center. It's huge. It loves the fans. It's great. The game room, the vendors hall, the panels, artist alley. It's so huge now, and we decided, we're like, all right, let's go see what all the hubbub's about. We came down and boom!
Amazing. I think it was probably the first time that we came up here. It was the best con I'd ever been to. I mean, it was just amazing.
And we're from LA, so we go to Anime Expo all the time, and it's there's something different
not
about
the same.
it. It's really Anime Expo is really corporate, and Fanime is really down to earth. And it's really about the fans, and it's really about just the people, and it doesn't feel as stark and stagnant. It's more friendly and happy, and that's why now this is our 3rd year back, and the panel keeps growing.
It does. We got a lot of people at the panel this year.
I didn't used to like conventions. I'd go. We had sci-fi conventions that I'd go to with friends and stuff. But really, and then I went to a couple in Colorado. It was kind of, it's okay. And then they said, no, you got to come down for Fanime. Hang out with us before E3. And this was last year. And I actually have been thinking about this all weekend. Fanime really is the con that made me like cons. Because it's so big, and it's so friendly, and it made me understand anime conventions a little bit better, and I got to appreciate it more.
Well, I'm glad you are all enjoying yourselves, and I hope you have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, and thanks for this time.
This is Jared from Scarlet Rhapsody, and thank you for watching.